Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Ask Me Anything session. I am Sergeant Nicholas Keys. I'm a senior recruiter with the Ontario Provincial Police, and I'm based out of Smiths Falls on the ancestral unceded territory of the Anishinaabe. And today I am joined by Inspector Deal, and I'm joined by PC Lee. And we are going to have a chance to answer some questions. As always, talk to you about recruitment. We're going to get the chance to hear a bit from our guests about their unique career paths, some of their experiences. And I also wanted to highlight that May is Asian Heritage Month. So we're going to have the chance to reflect and maybe everyone, learn a little bit more about some of the contributions of Asian Canadians and some of the history and some of that even within our own organization as we grow and develop. And so I just wanted to welcome you both. Thanks so much for joining me. I would be so scared to do this on my own, so I'm so glad to have you both here with me.
Thank you for inviting us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a chat beforehand, and I'll be honest, I was as I was saying in our little virtual green room there, like thinking about this and thinking about doing an Asian Heritage Month themed Ask Me Anything session. First of all, my wife was like, "How are they going to ask you anything about Asian heritage?" And I was like, "Yeah, like how many heritages am I talking about here?" Right. So, and then I realized, no, I have very qualified guests who are going to help me out. And I also kind of wanted to touch on the whole idea of like I was saying earlier, how do we do this in a way that doesn't feel like checking a box? Or how does, like a white guy hosting a Ask Me Anything session on social media not come off, cringy? And how do we do it in a way that actually inspires, folks from different Asian communities to maybe look at policing as an option? So that's so I'm excited to have both of you here. I wouldn't mind if you could just, Inspector, maybe if you wanted to start and just kind of introduce yourself, where you're working out of, and then we can just kind of get the chat going as people start to jump on the session here.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nick. Good afternoon to everybody that's joining our session today. My name is Inspector Kulveer Singh Diol. I am a detachment commander for the Ontario Provincial Police. The detachment I'm responsible for is the Queen's Park Detachment, which is located in downtown Toronto, right here in the GTA. Our primary roles and responsibilities are that we protect the members that work in our government buildings, the members that attend our government buildings for any official business, visitors, as well as our government property and assets as well. My detachment comprises of an amazing group of officers that we are just shy of 100 members here at our detachment. It is very unique in mandate. I've been with the Ontario Provincial Police for approximately 18 years now. I started off in a civilian capacity. Again, we have various different roles and career opportunities available to us. I started off in a civilian working capacity, then went on to become a cadet, followed by my uniform provincial constable time, and I've worked in a variety of different roles, and now I'm here currently at Queen's Park Detachment.
Right, and that's probably a pretty unique spot, I would imagine, to be a detachment commander. Like with the political aspect, and also I'm sure you got a lot of demonstrations that are happening because that's where our our politicians are sitting. So I'm sure you get a lot of that.
Yeah, in essence, we can say that we protect the democracy of the province here in Ontario, right here out of Queen's Park Detachment. We have wonderful relationships with our stakeholders, both internal and external, that play a huge factor in assuring that we are right on top of our mandate here. But again, it's a wonderful, wonderful team that I work along with here, that we get the job done and we do it properly.
I'm already seeing all these questions coming in. It's like they're just ready with their fingers on the keyboard there. So we'll go back and forth. You'll kind of see. We'll jump to some questions, and then we'll go back to conversation. But we have a couple people. One's asking if a civil engineering technician diploma would be relevant to applying as a police officer. I mean, I don't know about you both, but I mean, I usually say any education that's going to bring something new to the table that not everyone else is going to have is going to round out our organization and is going to be able to speak to your all kinds of abilities, right? So it doesn't. We always get hyper focused on the police foundations and those policing related courses and programs, but it doesn't have to be. We just need to know that you can learn. We know that you are committed to improving yourself, and yeah, I got some more. So this is when I start to do the old guy where I start to look into the comments. You'll see this throughout. I'm not even going to try to hide it here. Okay, we got oh, there was someone asking about. Let me see here. Read it first in your head, Nick. We're just getting some good greetings. So would you mind, PC Lee, would you mind introducing yourself and letting us know where you're working?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us to join today, Sarge. We're super excited. My name is Provincial Constable Samantha Lee. I'm currently based out of the West Perry Sound Attachment. So I guess some people from the GTA may consider that a northern location. We're about 2.5 hours from Toronto. And previous to this, I just moved here actually in October of 2023. Where I initially started was in Sioux Lookout, so in the Northwest region, approximately 20 hours or so from Toronto. That's where I completed my first 4 years of policing in a Northern Duration posting. And before I started policing, I was hired first as a civilian, similar to the inspector, in the Provincial Communications Centre in Orillia, as a call taker and then a dispatcher where I was for 2 years. And then I was a special constable in the court office in Sioux Lookout.
Right. So, and maybe maybe you can help me with this question then, because someone's asking about preparing for a Northern Duration posting and what kinds of things they could learn to prepare. So they're saying, aside from learning about Indigenous topics and taking courses, any suggestions on how to better prepare for a Northern Duration posting?
The first thing I'll say is that the Northern Duration wasn't something that I initially was interested in. My fiance actually got hired first, and they told him he was being posted to Sioux Lookout. And I said, well, have a wonderful time. I will see you in 4 years. I'm not going there. I didn't want to leave Central Ontario. I grew up in Barrie. And having been posted there and having lived there for 5 years, now I can say was the biggest opportunity and the biggest privilege that I've ever had so far in my life. So in terms of preparing, I would just say, as long as you're open to going to the North, it's honestly going to be one of the best decisions that you can ever make for yourself and potentially your family. I learned so much so quickly in that detachment. It was an extremely busy detachment. We had 19 cells. We were arresting, laying charges every single day. And I became a better person and a better police officer from having that experience. So just the fact that you're open to going, number one, is already a huge step in being prepared. I would just say it's an amazing adventure. It is what you make of it. If you're willing to take the leap of faith, everybody there is super supportive, and I don't think that you're ever going to regret doing that. So biggest thing I can ever say is consider Northern Duration. It was the best thing that I ever did.
And you actually had some opportunities to work in some Northern First Nations communities as well, some flying communities. Is that true?
Yeah, so I would say previous to going to live in Northern Ontario, I had like a little bit of understanding about the Indigenous culture and everything that's happened just through my education in social work is what I did my degree in. But having actual lived experience in these amazing opportunities from being employed with the OPP as a special constable, I flew up every single month to 3 First Nations communities, and I administered their courts, and it was actually in their community halls and in their centers. They didn't have a courthouse, and I would fly in and have that opportunity to interact with these communities. And I learned so much, about the province that I don't think I would have ever learned previous to that. And it's such a unique opportunity to be able to pack my bag, and I would go to the airport and I would jump on the Ontario Provincial Police plane, and they would fly me to these communities, and then they would fly me back at the end. And I don't think that a lot of people can say that they would do that just during a normal day of work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I've been lucky enough to get up to Kitchen and Megasabaninawig, if I'm saying it correct.
Close, yeah.
Big Chart Lake, yeah.
Yes,
And I did 2 weeks there, and like I was saying, like 7 nights in a row under the Northern Lights. Me and a First Nations constable from the community, and yeah, amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And we're still doing deployments. So I know
Yes,
in Northwest they're doing like 2 weeks in, and then you come back to your detachment for a time and have some time off, and then you're back in for 2 weeks to some of our First Nations community partners that we're like supporting. So I mean, that's a cool opportunity, especially if you go in with the right mindset. Like you said, you're open, and you kind of you go in with an open mind and go in and learn. And yeah, it's been.
Yeah. Your attitude makes it. And if you're ready to embrace everything that it has to offer, there's so many rewards for choosing a Northern posting.
I have a lot of things that I want to cover. And I know, like, at first I was worried about how we're going to do 45 minutes of this, but there's so many good things that I would love to cover off. So we had a really good pre-chat about, like, I was trying to figure out how as an organization do we not just check a box when it comes to trying to inspire people from different communities that aren't as reflected in our organization to apply. And things like, I was telling the inspector that I have like a recruiting banner with him on it, that every once in a while my filter would disappear and his head would just pop up beside me in the screen. And I was like, how does that feel? And we had some good conversation around that, and it actually made me feel a little bit better about it, to be honest. But there's some firsts for both of you, like in your family, Samantha and Inspector. For you specifically, like, would you share a little bit about that you were sharing with me just before we jumped on here?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. Thank you for bringing that up. The question that we had posted back and forth was, how effective are our promotional posters, or when we're looking at, especially when we're looking at different communities within the province? For me, when I joined the OPP, I was the first visibly practicing Sikh officer that was hired by the organization and sent to OPC to be trained. I've also been the very first visibly practicing Sikh officer to be promoted to the various ranks and to become a commissioned officer with the organization as well. That's a great matter of pride for me personally, but the real essence of the pride came when the organization had reached out to me and said, like, Kulveer, we would like to bring you upon our career posters and so forth for promotional needs. And I said that was a wonderful idea, because at that point I had also looked at the fact that, the OPP was not the service of primary choice for the members of the South Asian community. So I wanted to genuinely also be able to contribute towards that. And I think we made some great strides within the community, not with just the posters, but in general, being able to participate in various community events. Me personally, I've been leading the OPP's participation in the Khalsa Day Parade that happens every year in Toronto. And we've made a significant impact by being there for the community. The whole purpose was to humanize the badge, which I think we do a wonderful job with on a daily basis. So for me, that was my contribution towards the poster side of it. But in essence, when we're looking at celebrating Asian Heritage Month, I think we can tie it back to the values of the OPP when it comes to serving with pride, professionalism, and honor. I think that covers for any community. And being a member of the Sikh faith, that sums up what our contributions are towards community, is to be serving with pride, professionalism, and honor.
And forgive my ignorance, Inspector, but are there teachings in your faith about like having that role? Like, it feels like policing and being Sikh are like very kind of fitting from what I'm hearing. Like, I am hearing things like, if I was at, like, say on a bus and I was in trouble and I needed help, that I could go to someone who is Sikh for help, because they're like a protector or like a warrior or like a. Is that true? I've heard people talk to me about it like that, where there's a responsibility or a role in community, kind of.
There is a very strong responsibility towards community service within the Sikh community. And if we really go into the history of it, it has been definitely a warrior aspect to it. We definitely participate a lot in when it comes to military service, it comes to policing, anything that is giving back and being able to serve and protect the communities. Again, it's all policing lingo as well, but it absolutely fits in hand to hand with that. And that's one of the reasons why I also chose to become an OPP officer, was that I wanted to be a part of an organization that I could make an impact on a daily basis across the province.
Right. Thank you for that. And Samantha, I saw something in your homework assignment that you handed in to us that I appreciate that. You wrote, "You can't be what you can't see." And I thought, wow, I mean, I don't know if I can credit you with that quote, but maybe it
Yeah.
sounds like a great quote. And it really struck me. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, can you talk a little bit about what that means to you?
So that's always been one of the biggest things, I think, with me and my beliefs, and the reason why I chose to be a police officer, and the reason why I choose to assist with recruitment is because I always look, and it's the saying is, you can't be what you can't see. And people need to be able to look at us and see themselves in us. You need to be able to see people who are your police officers, who are in your community, who are leaders, who look like you. And once you're able to see somebody who looks like you in these positions as police officers, then maybe somebody else looking would be able to see that and say, I too can be that. So representation matters, and it's super important. I think the inspector hit it to a T. It's a little uncomfortable maybe having your face and your picture being put everywhere, but that in itself means so much, because there's so many people that see that and then look at you and know that they can too be just like you. And that's so important. And for me, my dad was the first Chinese police officer that was hired by the Ontario Provincial Police, and we are the only Chinese father and daughter. So there's, I'm sure, situations that the inspector can attest to when you're in a room, or you're in a place, or you're in a detachment, and you are the only person that looks like you, and you're the only person from your community. And I think that these situations, although they can be difficult, it's also a sense of pride in being there and showing up and showing that anybody could be like me, and the people that are looking could be like you too. So sometimes difficult, but also like a lot of pride, I would say.
Yeah. I was just picturing that. I want to see that poster with your father on it, like from like one of our 1980s or early 90s. It was the 80s.
1983
recruitment poster.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the challenges then for him coming in, being the first, would have been very significant, especially in the 80s.
Yes.
In the 80s, I mean, we weren't talking about a lot of things in the 80s.
No, and I don't think the public were used to seeing police officers that look different either. So he had experiences where he would attend calls for service, and there'd be racialized things that were said to him, just because the public weren't used to just seeing police officers who didn't look a certain way.
Right. Yeah. We had the same sort of conversation with Deputy Dart when we were talking on the podcast, just about how when we were doing, like, you know, the anniversary of women in uniform with the OPP, and how the media would come out to an accident scene and just take a picture of a female in uniform and be like, this is the story. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, it really also struck me talking to you both and hearing kind of like these stories of trailblazing, but in 2024, you know what I mean? And we're still blazing trails. I mean, it's unfortunate that you still need to, but I mean, it like the inspector said, it must be a real like sense of pride, but also a vulnerable spot to be in, putting yourself out there to try to show others that there's a space for you. I mean, that's got to be a vulnerable spot to be in too.
It's a very rewarding spot as well, Nick. That definitely, when we say like we're out on every poster, and when you're out in the community that people recognize you right away, that's also a great sense of pride. But I think it also comes with a lot of responsibility as well. And that's what keeps me grounded, motivated on a daily basis, knowing that, you know what, not only am I making a difference within the service, but in the community, but also motivating or hopefully inspiring others. Like Samantha said, like that was beautifully said, is like when someone sees you in that role, that may also inspire them to say, like, I can also join them. And the best part is when members actually do say that.
Yeah.
That plays a big factor. And then, you know what, it's so worth it.
Someone's got a question for you both. And it comes from someone with a photo with two ghosts wearing sheets. Oh. A question for your guests. What's your favorite part of your job? Anybody got a favorite part of the job so that they want to throw out there?
I think for me, so I work on the front line still. So I'm actually going to a night shift after this presentation, and I'll do my nights for 2 nights. I think my favorite part of the job is sometimes just not knowing who you're going to meet and what kind of situation you're going to be put in. And like through those difficult situations and those also amazing situations, you meet so many wonderful people. And I think I like the unknown. Every day is different. You can't really plan your day. Everything is new sometimes. And I think that's probably my favorite part, is that it doesn't really ever get boring. It doesn't get old. You're challenged constantly to think on your feet and to make tough decisions, but also rewarding decisions. So I think that's probably my favorite part.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very good, Samantha. And I would add on to that with the fact that wherever we live or wherever we work, the sense of giving back to your community, being able to make a positive change, maybe helping someone that's not at the greatest time in their life, or a situation that has erupted that they're unable to protect themselves, that brings forward a lot of greatness in what we do on a daily basis. But also for me, in my present role as a detachment commander, I like the responsibility and the commitment that is expected of me each and every day towards not only my detachment, but also to my community around, which is our Queensport campus. So the role, the responsibility, the commitment, and just that feeling of coming home every day saying like, yeah, in that 12-hour shift, I think I made an impact on someone today.
Yeah,
That's a wonderful feeling.
it really is.
I have a question for you, Inspector. So being that you were a lot of firsts, what made you think that this is something I can do? Like, if you weren't able to see anyone who looked like you in the organization, what made you think that this would be a place where you'd be happy, or that you'd have a good career, or like what attracted you to that?
Nick, that's a really good question. And I have a line that I consistently remind myself on. And this goes back to my days of prior to even becoming a police officer. If I'm not a part of the solution, I'm a part of the problem. That's the line that I continuously remind myself. And the reason for that is, again, I'm born and raised here in Canada, but I'm a child of an immigrant family. So when my parents had immigrated to Canada, diversity inclusion wasn't as big as it is right now. So when I had the conversation with my family that I wanted to be a police officer, it was a very interesting conversation at that point. But the reality was that if not me, then who? That's the way you have to look at it. For me, I knew I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to give back. I wanted to serve the community as well. Not only just my community. The community for me is everyone that I'm serving. But that's when I really looked at it and said that, you know what, I need to step up and I need to do this. So again, having been able to do that really, really, really makes it impactful for me.
And did anyone plant the seed in your head that maybe the OPP was an option for you, or was there anyone who helped kind of steer you towards the OPP?
See, the reason for me, and again, being being someone that was born and raised in the city of Toronto, why was I attracted to a provincial service? And that's a very valid question. And my thought process for that was it not only gave me the opportunity to expand my career options within the organization, because we are at a provincial level, but the other thing was it was going to give me an opportunity to be able to raise my family anywhere in the province of Ontario. That geographically to me was a wonderful idea. During my career, I've also worked with Municipal Policing Bureau, so we were looking after the contracts of the organization as well. Municipal Policing Bureau took me to parts of the province that I, A, may have not even known about, or B, may have never even left my house to go see. When you're from the city, you have that kind of block towards certain areas to say, like, I don't know, the Great North may not be as great as they say. It truly is great. It's
It is.
beautiful. It solidified my thought process that if I maybe got tired of the city at some point, I wanted to move around, would I be able to raise my family anywhere else in this province? The Ontario Provincial Police provides me with that opportunity to be able to do that. So not only was it a good option career development wise, but is also for my personal needs of being able to raise a family. And Samantha has already, told us about how her journey went from being in the South to going up to the North. And my God, we have such a beautiful province.
We really do.
It's beautiful.
Great. And Samantha, if you could maybe share, did your dad encourage you to apply, or did your dad discourage you from applying? Because I'm a father of 2 daughters, so I don't know, and I'm a recruiter, and I'm still not sure if I would encourage or discourage. They're just little, but I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, so my pathway to policing wasn't always linear. I wrote a little project when I was probably 10, and I wrote, what are the goals of my future? And at 10, having seen my dad as a police officer for my entire life, I wrote that I wanted to be a policeman. And then as I got older, that wasn't really something that I thought that I would ever do. Throughout high school, I wasn't leading towards a career with law enforcement. I was leading towards more a career with social work. So it wasn't until I started working at the communication center and really as a call taker and a dispatcher that I kind of thought to myself, you know what, taking these calls is wonderful. However, I want to be there. I want to be the officer that goes to these calls. I want to be the officer that speaks to these people and helps them in this situation or investigates the crimes that are impacting them. So that's kind of when it's shifted from wanting to do social work to then moving towards policing. And then you just see the connection between the helping profession and policing, and they just align so perfectly. And I think when I told my dad that I wanted to be a police officer, he was just like, no, not a good idea. But you know what, he's come around. He's still heavily involved in his retirement, researching for the OPP Museum and the Youth Foundation. So he still does a lot of that. And I think that now he sees and he's extremely proud. But when he first started policing and he told his parents, they were similar to you, Inspector. They were like, this is not something that you're going to do. You are not going to be a police officer, especially when there aren't these other people that you can see that his parents or your parents could see and say, oh, this person from our community is a police officer and he or she's lived an amazing life and has done so well. They didn't have that frame of reference, so they discouraged him heavily. So a little convincing was needed, but overall, I think he was okay with it in the end.
And he's still involved, which is which speaks to it, I guess. He's still got a passion for it, which is nice. Okay, let me see. I had something else I wanted to ask you while I was on there. Before I do, I'll answer one of these questions though. Someone who's 49 years old, is it hard to get on the job if you're physically fit? I would say that the biggest challenge would be the physical fitness piece. And if you're physically fit and you've got other things, like look at our if you look at our areas of assessment with the OPP, you'll see all the pieces of the pie. And I mean, we've definitely hired people above that age, and our age requirement is over 18. So as long as you got what it takes, then feel free to apply, and we encourage you to.
In my class, because I'm in my 5th year of policing, in my class, there were people who were, 20 years old, and there was somebody else that was 53 years old, and this was his second career. So I think as long as you're willing to commit to the career, the age doesn't matter.
Speaking of age, we just got someone who's 15 who's excited and on this. Sorry to clap in my very sensitive microphone. But planning on joining once they turn 18. And they're looking, you know what, at 15, Cameron, that is a great time because you can just start building it and you've got time. You're not like, in your mid 20s or your 30s and trying to I want to apply right now. And you're trying to build a whole profile and all of these pieces of the puzzle. 15 is a great time. Be patient with yourself, be a kid, and remember that your conduct from now on, if this is what you want to do, that should inform how you carry yourself in life. So your choices that you make and, who you're associating with and what you're doing and, and what kind of learning you're doing and what kind of volunteer work and community work you do. 15 is a great time. You could build yourself into a perfect candidate from 15, that's for sure. But be patient with yourself and don't rush it. That's for sure. Okay. What else did I want to ask you? I had a really good one. I swear, Samantha, in the middle of what you're saying, and then I got lost in what you were saying. I was like, oh. let's see if we got any. I had some folks asking about some timelines, and I hate to say, but timelines, there's like this constellation of factors. There's so many different pieces of our application process, so many different pieces of our processing in recruitment that it's really difficult. And by giving timelines to folks, it's just setting bad expectations, and I'm going to disappoint you. I can tell you, someone was asking about auxiliary. So we work closely with Community Safety Services. The auxiliary program is an amazing program, a great opportunity. Be patient because it's a big program, and it's run by like some dedicated individuals, but it's a small group of people that are processing these. So it can take time, but it's a great opportunity, and a lot of our folks have. A lot of our officers have been auxiliaries and have had a great experience that led into a great career. And I remembered what I was going to say. It sounds like all three of us were civilian OPP employees prior to getting on the job. So, I mean, and I worked in the comm center as a sergeant for a while. I saw the work that our dispatchers and call takers did, and you see like some of our folks that are applying to our cadet program. In the comments here. All of these civilian roles, they're great experiences. And whether you choose that as your career for forever or as a stepping stone, I encourage you to go to our website, opp.ca/careers. It'll explain whole uniform recruitment process, but it'll also kind of give you some ideas on civilian employment too, because I mean, it's a big jump from civilian life to policing, especially if you don't have, maybe a dad that was a police officer where you could see it and got a kind of a feel for the culture. It's it can be a big jump for people. So civilian employment is something that would be a good start for some if you're not sure yet.
Absolutely.
And don't let me take all the air in this room because I can talk, man. Can I talk?
I was going to ask you, Inspector, have you participated in the Diversity Career Championship program through through MyOps?
That I have not, Samantha. I'll be honest with you on that one. It's unfortunately no, I haven't participated in that one. But I did want to make a point that Nick was highlighting the different avenues that we have within the organization. Here at Queens Park Detachment, a significant complement of our members are special constables that are again a civilian designation, but they wear the uniform. They have certain authorities within our designated buildings. They have their use of force options as well. There are a variety of different avenues apart from just the uniform side of becoming a police officer. So again, that's also a wonderful career for some of our members. I'm looking at the chat group with some of their questions there. Like that could be another avenue you may wish to explore than just being focused on just that. Is policing the only thing that we have to offer? No, clearly we have other avenues as well.
All right. Yes. And for me, I did like contract work for a while. Like I think I was doing filing for drug enforcement for a while. And then I jumped into a contract with Indigenous policing for a little while, which was great. And then I worked for the G8 Summit. So there was like 3 different civilian roles that I had that gave me all kinds of different experiences and built me up. So I had some things to talk about when I wanted to apply as a police officer. So and I think I kind of wish that all of our officers had been civilians on the job at one point, because it gives you a whole other appreciation for our civilian employees and their wealth of knowledge and how they basically like run the organization in a lot of ways, right? So never to underestimate the importance of all of our civilian employees, because like I said, especially at detachments, I mean, they would probably have to shut the doors if it wasn't for our civilian folks.
Yeah.
We got a call, or a kind of a nice general one that anyone could grab. How do you handle really challenging calls?
Yeah. So I guess the thing that I enjoy about policing, right, is that you never know what kind of situation you're walking into. But with that comes calls that maybe you yourself haven't even thought about ever having to attend. And you're going to see things that other people don't see. You're going to go into situations when people are running the other way, but you're running towards the people. And those calls obviously weigh on you. There'll be times when I'll come home from, a long 12 hours where you see just a variety of people that are just experiencing the worst possible day of their entire lives. And then you kind of need to decompress from that, and whether it's sleep because you got to go to your shift tomorrow, or interact with your family. And how do you do that, right? It's difficult. And I think that both of you could say the same, but having established plan for your own personal wellness and taking accountability for your own wellness is huge. And having the people around you that support you, having, whether it's your platoon, and I've been so fortunate to have an amazing platoon where we check in on each other. How are you feeling? Were you sleeping? Did you eat? And having the resources within the OPP for the healthy workplace. There's a bunch of amazing people there that are there to support. So how to challenge you handle them, you learn as you go, and you develop the skills to continue to ensure that you're putting yourself out there for your family every day, and that you're showing up to these calls, and that you're showing up every single day fit for duty.
I would add to what Samantha just said, like that's spot on with a lot of the points that I was going to touch on as well. You rely on your training. Ask the question. We are trained very well. We have our various options that are available to us to handle a situation. But the best one is you also practice your communication skills, right? That's something that even for Cameron, that was super young, that's looking to join as well at some point, is communication skills is very key. De-escalation skills is very key. But being able to openly talk about how you feel is very important. And Samantha really nailed it there. Having a really good platoon as well really helps. Being able to have that open, communication with your team members to say, like, what, that call was a little something extra for me, and I don't know quite how I feel. But to sit down with someone to have that conversation. What I will also say is to have a healthy life outside of policing is very important. We are all aware of friends that we have on the job as well, that their life is kind of engulfed within the policing environment. Personally, it helps to have some lifestyle outside of policing as well, where you have those friends that can pick up on certain cues of you, that, what, Colbert, that's not you, man, all the time. Like, why so hush, or why not? Why aren't you cracking the jokes that you normally would? Or just somebody to tell me you're not yourself. So to maintain that perfect balance, personally and professionally, is very important. Some members like to, that they are absolutely devoted to their fitness, aspect of their life. That really helps as well. Some, like myself, the days I actually come home and go straight to the kitchen, there's something on my mind, right? But that's my de-stressor. I like to cook my stress away. But then also being able to just sit down with family and maybe just talking about not the details of what you may have gone through, because there is a confidentiality aspect to it as well, but just to talk about your feelings of, well, how am I feeling today? It's very important. The OPP has a wonderful, healthy workplace team as well. We have a wonderful support system within the organization as well, and that is encouraged. We highly encourage that at every aspect, any role that I've been in, to continuously say, like, man, we should call for a debrief. We should ask for some assistance if we need it, but never, even in your personal lives outside of policing, suffer in silence.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
Right.
Talk to someone, get the communication going, because it really helps to just even talk about a situation.
We did a podcast. We do the Reflections podcast in recruiting with Sergeant Mills up in Thunder Bay, and we had a guest on, and something that they said kind of struck me. They were like, "Well, what was it like when I first went to my first, big calls?" And they just openly were like on the podcast, "It was terrifying. I was scared as scared can be." And I just thought, how nice is it that you were sitting there in an OPP uniform and didn't even hesitate to say that you felt scared? Like, to me, I've been with the OPP about 15 years now, and it struck me as new. It struck me as something refreshing and new to hear someone be vulnerable and be like, yeah, I was scared. Because it's like that whole pretense that we put on, like this vest, you put on a whole other vest that people don't see, where you're trying to protect yourself from all the things you're dealing with. And you're right, like, speaking about these things is the best thing to do. Like, I don't feel I burden my wife because she's a very like strong and smart woman. And like you say, I don't share all the details, but when things bother me, we talk about it. And if I didn't, I would probably just be acting out at people and no one would really know why. And I probably wouldn't even know why. Also, Inspector, if you're ever in like do you do any incident command stuff ever? Because if you do and you get really stressed, I want to be right there when you cook your stress away. Like I want to be standing right there with the plate in my hand.
Oh, it's thank you for bringing that up too, Nick. And one of the roles that I do have is I am also an incident commander for the OPP as well. I'm also the SIU liaison officer. That's another role that we have within the organization. That there are days that you know what you have those stressful days, but again, I'm a communicator. I've always encouraged that, but again, I lead by example when it comes to that. That I will sit somebody down. Again, something for our members that are currently looking to get into policing is it doesn't start when the application is approved and you get the offer of employment with us. I genuinely say this isn't a job, this is a lifestyle. So if you look at our values of the organization, those are not just values that you uphold being a member of the OPP. Those can also apply to you in your personal lives as well. When we talk about serving with pride, professionalism, and honor, when we talk about interacting with respect, compassion, fairness, and leading with integrity, honesty, and courage, you can do that in your daily life as well, outside of being an OPP officer. So I would keep a keen eye on members that I would work along with, or even as a supervisor on the front line. I would continuously watch my members, and when I felt like somebody was not being themselves, that's when I would take them aside and just have a conversation and say, like, how's everything going? How was the call yesterday? And just by opening up a conversation, you have no idea how much relief you're causing the other member that now feels that they can openly talk about their feelings or how a call went or how a stressful situation may have been. But again, for me, I talk and I cook. Those are my two ways.
Awesome. Constable Lee, would you have, I got a question from Lizzie here asking if you'd have a piece of advice for new recruits when they're first going out onto the road to be able to show respect in all the different communities that we're serving.
I think my biggest piece of advice is to listen, to learn, to look for those opportunities, whether it's at a call for service, to learn from your community. Take everything in as you start wherever you're being posted to. You're going to meet all the different facets of a community that you may, if you're moving, right, you may not know the community. And it's taking the time to go out and seek these opportunities to meet these people and to meet members of your community. So take it in. I would say yes. If an opportunity is given to you, do you want to go meet so-and-so? Would you like to go to this call? The answer is always yes. And go in with an amazing attitude. And I think that you'll be right on your way.
Yeah, like I can speak from a little bit of experience. I remember when my wife is Anishinaabe, and when I we first started dating, she took me to my very first powwow. Yeah. And I remember now I love it, and I go in there and I feel comfortable and at home. But I remember feeling very like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And very like, it was completely unfamiliar. She was trying to show me, how to put her tobacco in the sacred fire. I started following her around the fire. She's like, don't follow me. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? I was just like, but you know what? And I've had like elders call me, say, hey, you want to come and clean a moose? And I'm a vegetarian, and my brain's going, no. But then the other part's going, you should be learning as much as you can, even if you just put yourself out there. Because I talked to some folks, and they're not necessarily coming off as like, having any open bias or anything like they're negative towards anyone else, but they literally can't articulate any contact with any other cultures other than their own. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking like, that's sad, because like you start learning and it's amazing. Like we all have so many amazing things to bring to the table. So get out there and start learning and start going to things, and don't crash parties of other cultures. You'll make sure that you're welcome there, but definitely go check it out. Okay, what do we got going here? Let's see. We talked a little bit about it, but there's a question from Cameron here about with how demanding your jobs are, is it challenging for you to find that work-life balance?
I'll step in on that one. That's a really good question, Cameron. There are times where you can find that the work-life balance, as they say, isn't quite being struck. I'll go back to my comment about maintaining a healthy lifestyle outside of policing as well, and that doesn't mean just by physical fitness. It means also having friends that are not police officers as well. That just to be able to talk about general affairs of what's going on and whatnot will also keep you grounded. One of the things that I really like to focus on when there's a lot of things going on, whether it's work and home wise, also is, and our commissioner really speaks to it, is the win way of looking at things. WIN. What's important now? When you look at it through that lens, it really starts putting things into perspective. Okay, like, you know what? Right now, it's very important that I'm at my daughter's, skating practice today. Okay, right now everything's going good. We're just about to watch a movie. I know I have this thing that's pending that's very important work-wise. Let me spend a little bit of time with that as well. But it's also knowing your own boundaries to be able to say, like, you know what, I need to decompress. There is times that I need to take a step back from my duties of whatever they may be work-related, and maybe I just need to be a daddy right now. Right. So just striking that balance, and it comes with experience, though, Cameron. I will definitely say that. To say that every day we know exactly how we're going to balance our day, it doesn't happen, because that's the lovely part about being a police officer as well, is, as Samantha said, is just going into work not knowing what you're really going to see today or what's going to be happening. This isn't quite a like a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 1 regime kind of career. It's basically going in and every day not knowing what you're going to be challenged with, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I would agree, Inspector. I think, like you said, initially when I first started, it was difficult. I work the 5-4 schedule on shift work. So sometimes you're working like 5 12-hour shifts in a row, nights and days. And I would find myself between the sets where I would get 4 to 5 days off, and I was thinking about work. I was thinking about all the things that I needed to do that maybe I had forgotten to do, or what am I going to do next week? What am I going to do next set? And then it comes to a point where you're at work for those 5 shifts, and then you're thinking about work for those 5 days off, and then you're back. So being able to separate that is really important, so that when I show up at the beginning of my set, I'm there, I've rested, I'm ready to serve my community, I'm ready to answer any single call that comes in, and then I'm able to go home at the end of my set after my 5 or 4 days, and I'm able to, I guess you can't really always turn it off, but to give myself the grace to be, that was the set, and I will handle whatever comes next. And I'm going to take the time to spend time with my family. Sew. I like to sew, and I have an embroidery machine, and do other things that I really enjoy, so that I'm able to be the best for my community and for myself when I start that next set.
Yeah. And I think that balance you're saying, like, it's not just for you, right? It's to keep you healthy, but if you're going to serve the community in a good way, then you have to have that balance. And if you're going to be, good to your family, you got to have that balance at home. So yeah, it is a balancing act for sure. But I find the organization understands that and supports that balance. Like, I remember when I was on the road, like, for example, if I had to like work on Christmas morning, for example, and I was fortunate enough to be living in the area where I policed, my sergeant would be like, go home and watch your kids open presents, keep your radio on. If something happens, get out there. But otherwise, you know what I mean? Like, there are little bits of leeway here and there that they'll give you because they get it, right? Or go ahead and go do patrols and go, pop in and show your face at your kid's hockey game or something, or whatever the thing is, right? And I do appreciate that. I remember coming up with, like, babies at home and being able to, have a little bit of leeway or having that understanding. It wasn't that like real, like, paramilitary, like, I don't want to hear about your home problems kind of a vibe. It was everyone understood because they had their own families and their own lives outside of policing, right?
Absolutely.
Let's see if we got any more questions here. While I'm looking at questions, I do have to say, I did a little bit of research, and I didn't want to like make this like facts about Asian Heritage Month, but I have to say, I found out that the Japanese architect who built the War Museum here in Ottawa, and Ottawa City Hall, and the Canadian Embassy or Embassy in Tokyo, and library in Toronto. Like these amazing, like the nicest buildings we have in Canada, basically some of them. We had put into an internment camp during World War II and built his first build out of scrap wood in an internment camp, you know, that he would have been paying for with his own belongings. You know what I mean? I'm looking at some of the history and some of the things that that I learned just kind of doing a little dive into kind of our legacy in Canada with you know, like barring people from landing in Canada from some countries while we're accepting hundreds of thousands from European nations, and all these like kind of race-based policies that we're overcoming. So, and these are, you know, like, you know, people weren't allowed to practice law. People weren't, and so I'm thinking about when your dad joined, being like the first Chinese officer with the OPP, and it's not that far away from some of these things that were happening. Like it's almost like one generation, like his father's generation, you know, and mother, they could have been like at the age where they would have been like, you know, rounded up and put into camps and had all their belongings sold off and things like that, you know, as like, you know, say third generation Canadians because of their background, you know. So it was a bit of an eye opener for me, going through, because like I said, all I hear is, you know, a 30-second Canadian heritage moment that kind of just kind of grazes over it, right? But when you dig in a bit, you realize that the challenges run deep, and they're embedded in systems that need to be weeded out as we go. So I think the more of this that we do, and the more we're hearing from our folks and hearing these conversations, it's going to really hopefully start breaking up more of the remnants of all of that stuff, that legacy that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think it's so important to talk about the legacy, but also to honor and look at the accomplishments, the amazing accomplishments of the Asian community in Canada. And then we kind of focus a little bit more towards the OPP, and we get to see Inspector, and we get to see and meet all these other people within the OPP and the Asian community that have done so much, and we continue to evolve and we continue to grow. And hopefully there's people that see the Inspector and I, and hopefully from these Asian communities, and they also believe that they can do it too. And we welcome you, and we can't wait to meet you, I think is safe to say.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. That strengths-based like conversation is like, I think, a lot more empowering. It's when I look at when I look at all this negative stuff that I had seen, it kind of really takes everything that you're both saying, and it gives me some context of just how much it means, you know, how much it really means. And yeah, I mean, this has been, I don't know where we're at for time, but this has been amazing so far. And you both have been like, I mean, I just feel like I was more of an audience member than a host here, because I'm just enjoying listening and learning.
But each and every one that, you know, puts on the uniform, regardless of whichever community they're from, we all are playing a part in bridging the gap that's perceived there, right? And we're also trying to break down perceivable barriers that certain communities may have with policing. And I think that's why it's very important that we have a very, you know, uncut, ask me anything type of, you know, these type of shows as well, where we can speak directly with the audience, where we're also humanizing the badge, because at the end of the day, we were also the ones that were to the left of the screen on our chat group at one point seeking out answers. We had the desire to become a police officer, but we also may not quite have known the path to exactly get there. We're tapping into other officers, other resources. So I think this is wonderful, because this helps us to bridge that gap between policing and the community, and to break down any barriers that, you know, communities may have from their history with law enforcement, or with just, you know, the uniform in general.
Great. Thank you for that, Inspector. And with that, I think we're right at time for wrap up. So I thank everyone for their questions. I know there may have been a couple unanswered questions, and I apologize for that. Feel free, if it's a burning question, send us an email or jump on the next Ask Me Anything session. We're happy to answer these questions. I want to thank Samantha Lee and the Inspector for sharing all of their stories, and some of their personal stories and family stories, it's been great, and I'm sure that some of the folks at home are going to be inspired and takes a lot away from it. I want to say Happy Asian Heritage Month to everyone out there. It's the month of May, but it shouldn't be just the month of May. So let's keep learning about other cultures, and about all the contributions and some of the history in our country that goes along with it. And look, we're getting more questions now. We will talk to you soon, all you eager folks. And if you have any questions, if you want to learn more, please go to opp.ca/careers. We've also got an events page there, so go check that out, and you can see all kinds of live events and virtual events that OPP Uniform Recruitment are running. And so thanks so much to you both for your time. I really